This is a favorite crop right here. This is kale. We have a couple of different kinds. We have curly kale, which is our favorite down there. And then this really tall stuff is red Russian kale. And it does really well too. And so we come out here often and we pick big bowlfuls and we take them inside and we bake them in the oven. That is our favorite way to eat kale. You can put them in salads, smoothies. We do put them in salads sometimes, but our favorite way is to put a little oil on a pan, tear up the kale into bite-sized pieces, and put a little salt and nutritional yeast. Bake it in the oven for a few minutes. It's delicious. Since it's warm, I'm having to keep coming out here and cutting the flowers off of these kale plants because otherwise they will bolt and go to seed, stop growing, and that would be a very sad day. As long as possible, we're gonna keep these flowers off and let them keep going. So I just give the flowers to the chickens, the rabbits, compost pile. This kale I planted 7 or 8 months ago. I planted it in the fall last year and it grew slowly throughout that fall and winter, and then this spring it just took off. So we've had this to eat off of while we were waiting for our other kale that I planted early this spring. This is our second bed of kale, and this right here is called Swiss chard. Look at these big old leaves. This is a hardy green that grows super well. You can use it like kale in salads, smoothies, and we bake it like the kale. The kale is a little bit crispier and has a little bit more texture to it. We just use it the same way and it grows really well. So this was just a few seeds that we planted and we got a whole nice little row of big Swiss chard. It has been so fun having our own strawberries really for the first time this year. I think we tried a few years ago. They didn't do anything. Thanks to the kindness of a friend of ours last fall, she was thinning out her strawberry patch, which she taught us to do for the future, that every fall you need to thin out your plants so that they can keep producing big berries. Otherwise they'll give small berries. And we stuck them in these raised beds and they have taken off this spring. It's already beginning of June, but they are still producing a lot. I expected to just get a couple handfuls for the first year. I didn't know what to expect, but we have been very pleasantly surprised. We just planted them every 8 inches or so. We mulched them with wood chips, but we've also heard that straw is an ideal mulch for strawberries. So we might try that in the future. Right here I have onions planted all throughout this strawberry bed because I heard that onions and strawberries are good companion plants. They benefit each other. They have really done well in this strawberry bed, and I hope and suppose by being companion plants they are doing extra well. We love this time of year because we get to harvest all of our blueberries. And we had tried a few years ago to plant an entire blueberry patch. We had a certain portion of our farm that was perfect soil. We had tested the pH levels and everything was saying that it was ready for blueberries. So we ended up planting a lot of blueberry plants and we worked tirelessly for many years. That blueberry patch was a total fail and it was really sad because we had invested a lot of time, a lot of money buying all the good, wonderful plants. So we ended up digging up that patch of blueberries and planting our elderberries, and now our elderberries are doing absolutely fantastic. So we decided a few years later that we would try to plant some blueberries along the front of our house. We're like, why not? We can try it and see what happens. We did, and they have taken off. Apparently they love it here, and we're wondering if it has something to do with the partial shade. Previously they had been in full sun all day long. Now they have just afternoon sun. We're wondering if that has something to do with it. Maybe they get more water. We're not really sure why they're doing so much better here than they did out in our perfectly tested soil area. We love it, so we just love to walk right off the porch and pick fresh blueberries in the morning or whenever, and it is so nice. It's been really fantastic to have them really close. And it's also so much fun to have edible landscaping. Instead of having bushes and plants and flowers that are just pretty to look at, we have bushes that produce fruit we can pick from and feed our family with. So it's really so much fun to use the blueberries for two purposes: lovely landscaping and also really awesome food. A few years ago we were at a plant nursery and we found this interesting variety of blueberries called pink lemonade blueberries.
And they're a super fun, different variety. They're still blueberries as far as the shape goes, but when they're ready, they turn a nice greenish, pinkish color. And they taste kind of like blueberries, but they're more sour. It's not your typical blueberry, but it's a lot of fun to have a different variety. So we have 3 different pink lemonade blueberries growing at the end of our porch here.
These beautiful plants right here are called comfrey, and they are one of our favorite herbs. They're a little bit rough and tad prickly, but really not that bad. And I'm just snipping these beautiful big leaves, and I'm going to take them inside and dry them. And we love to make comfrey salve to use for all kinds of things. Comfrey leaf and root, they have the same properties, but the root is a little bit stronger. But for now, we just use the leaves while the roots of the plant are getting established. And the nice thing about comfrey is that it creates new plants from the roots. Once it's gotten established for a year or 2, it is good to go, and it'll keep coming back every year. So while it is in its prime season right now, we are harvesting some to preserve it so that we have some year round. I'm going to dry these leaves indoors by just spreading them out in a drying rack. Lets lots of airflow get to it. Once they're dry, I just store them in a jar. I can either crush them up somewhat or just tack them in a jar. They are ready to use for preparations, for poultices, salves, all that good stuff. Echinacea is a wonderful herb to have on hand, and here I'm standing by our purple echinacea. Echinacea purpurea is the botanical name. These blooms are beautiful. I am going to harvest some of these blooms to use for their medicinal properties. The root of echinacea is the main part of the plant that is used, but the blooms have almost as good properties as the roots. Echinacea is super good for the immune system. It has antibacterial properties. It's great for infection. Echinacea is great to have on hand. So I am excited to dry these blooms to have dried flowers to use when we need them. I planted basil with our tomato plants this year because I heard that they are good companion plants, and the basil can actually flavor the tomatoes. I've heard. I'm really eager to see if that is the case. Good thing about companion planting, they benefit each other in different ways, and so they actually like growing together. This basil, I'm really excited about it because I planted it from seed this year. Usually we buy a couple plants from the store and just harvest off of those during the summer, but this year I planted a good few basil plants, and they are doing really well. This is Genovese basil, and we've noticed it's stronger tasting, a stronger flavor than what we would usually buy at the store. I love that it's from seed, and I am just coming out here every few days and picking a bowl full and drying it. So I have this basil just staggered throughout my row of tomatoes. So I've got a tomato plant and then 2 basil plants, and then a tomato plant and then 2 more basil plants. So I've got a whole row of basil plants. It's nice because the tomato plants give them a little bit of shade so they're not baking in the sun, but they seem to be loving the warmth regardless.
I was about to do some things, and then Hannah said, look what we got. So I looked what she had, and it was sweet potatoes. They came in the mail this morning, so I switched my plans from what I was about to do, headed out to the garden. I've been preparing some beds. We've done this way for years, and it's been pretty awesome. We built some tall mounds of dirt, and let me show you, I'm about to plant some every foot, 1 foot apart. These are called sweet potato slips, and they're just pretty much the beginnings of a plant with roots. We also grow these indoors off of sweet potatoes, but these we ordered. And so there you have a little slip with roots down here. I'm just gonna plant right in here. I put some rabbit manure in on this mound. This mound is very fluffy, it's not very compressed, and so they will root down. Each plant will have 10 to 20 pounds worth of sweet potatoes. Above ground, it binds into these beautiful vines and eventually some purple flowers. So we'll start here, and just by hand, just make it a little bit of room, and that's it. We'll plant them every foot, but in the middle, on the side of these mounds, we will cover it with plastic and then mulch the top around each plant. So this entire section will be weedless, and then eventually the vines will cover it all in this undulating, beautiful row of sweet potatoes.
I've had fun growing beets this spring, and it's gotten to the point where they're getting ready a few at a time, and that's actually all we need. We eat 4 or 5 at a time. I go inside and I chop them up and I bake them with a little bit of oil, and some of us love them, others are like, eh, they're okay. It's so fun that our little kids, they just love them. They love sweet potatoes, and the way I cook the beets, it reminds them of sweet potatoes. So they're like, oh, beets, we get to eat beets for dinner. So that's really fun and rewarding when they love the harvest. And it's good to take the stems off when you harvest them so that the beet stays crisp. The beet greens are edible and nutritious too, and we treat them like kale or Swiss chard, the greens that we also bake and treat like kale chips. Those are yummy.
I added these 2 sweet potato mounds into what we've been using as a sweet potato area every year for the past while. So we make these big mounds. Well, this year, early on, Hannah planted some carrots for these beds. It's our first time successfully growing carrots, and you've seen some Hannah pulling some up. Good timing, because we're harvesting these carrots just in time to put in these new sweet potatoes. And so we're gonna have 8 sweet potato beds instead of 5.
I'm gonna harvest some of our red raspberry leaves. And if you're familiar with red raspberry leaf tea, that is all that is. It's just harvested red raspberry leaves. So I'm just gonna grab just an upper portion of the leaf. It is a little bit prickly, so you wanna be careful, but I'm just gonna harvest this top here. And we're gonna use it for tea. We can dry it up, we can use it fresh in our tea. Raspberry leaf has a lot of great medicinal benefits as well, and it's a really good ladies' herb too. Our raspberry plants grow in abundance, and so it's like we have a free resource full of tea right out in the garden, which is super nice. And our raspberries have never produced a whole lot of berries, so we're just gonna take advantage of the leaves and put up a lot of tea, even if we don't get very many berries. So the plant has more uses than just the berries. This is our massive yarrow, or yarrow plant, depending on how you say it. And a friend of ours actually gave us a little itty bitty plant. It was about this big, and it was just a portion of her plant she just had dug up and gave it to us. It didn't have any flowers at the time, it was just leaves. We just planted it and it has grown massively, so much so that it's falling over and we have to tie it up with this string here. Yarrow is a really great medicinal herb. It has a lot of fantastic medicinal benefits, and it's best to harvest it when it's flowering, which is right now, so that's why I'm grabbing us a bunch of yarrow. We're gonna take this inside and dry it up. You can turn it upside down, let it hang dry, or what we like to do is cut the stems in more individually and lay them out so that they'll dry more evenly. But you can use it in teas, tinctures, glycerites. Yarrow has a lot of fantastic medicinal benefits. It's kind of one of those herbs that you say, what's it good for? And you answer, what's it not good for? Because it has so many really fantastic benefits. We're just grabbing the upper portion. It's like you're picking a floral bouquet. We're just gonna stick this in our basket.
One thing I hate about plants is weeds, as you all do, because they're so persistent and so hardy, and they just keep coming back in. Good thing is, sometimes your nice plants do the same. When you think, oh man, they're dead, they come back. So a lot of some fig trees that I had were gone and dead, and they showed up. Some other plants. Well, this over here, this green thing running along the railing, and down that way is a little bitty hops plant. We're all into beer. We planted it last year, and it's the north side of the house. It doesn't get much sun, and we only put it here because of the railing that it could climb up. Well, this year we didn't do a thing to it, and just noticed, what's that weed growing? It's not a weed. It's our hops plant. It's back without paying attention. It's much better the second year, and so now it made it up from about, I don't know, 8 feet down to the ridge here, and so I'm gonna add some strings up to here, and then encourage it to grow up and up and up and up. And then we liked this so much that we bought some little bitty plants this year, so next year we'll have plants this size wanting to grow up, about 6 or 7 plants on the back porch, and grow up and give us shade and hops. Pretty awesome. I like how hardy even good plants are. Oh! I learned how to hammer when I was a kid, and I retained that skill. You know what? I don't know if you can hear it. Do you hear it? I hear something buzzing.
The carpenters?
Oh, there's a...
Whoa, don't.
There's a buzzing right in my ear. And I was gonna turn, and here's this little jar over here is my carpenter bee trap. Not doing so hot. Others are full. This particular one is not. I'm hearing this buzzing thinking it's in here, and it's actually right next to my ear, right here. There's a hole, and I see him, and he stopped buzzing and went in. I was gonna go and hammer him, but this guy belongs in here, not in my house. He's just mad, is what he is.
No, don't.
Oh, you better get out of
Coming
there.
out?
No.
Yeah?
You hear him?
Oh, get out, get out.
Do you hear him?
Out, yes.
Is he coming out? Yeah, I better move. I'm gonna attach a string from here straight up to the other one, and then I'm gonna not peel off, but encourage, instead of going along the fence that way, find an end, say this guy. I'm actually gonna put 3 or 4 strings going up, and then just encourage it to curl up and see if it'll go up one string, and if I have to, I'll put some horizontal pieces as well.
It can be easy sometimes to get caught up in all the busyness going on, and especially in the beginning of spring when everything's going into the ground, it can be so exciting. Just getting everything started, everything's small, there's minimal weeds, it's delicious, glorious weather, and then the summer comes and it gets hot and it gets humid, and it's easy to let things go or to not have time to put up the harvest and put up the produce. So we're just trying to be mindful to remember that each season has its ups and its downs and its challenges and its joys, and to harvest what we have and to use it, because that is the best way that we're going to get the most out of our garden. Not just the planting and not just the growing, but the harvesting and the preservation, the full season. That's what we're trying to do here with all these herbs, and we encourage you to do the same with your garden.